Helen Lederer is with us. Hello, Helen.
Well, I can speak now, can I? Because I would have joined in earlier, but then I thought, no, I've not been introduced.
I would like to read the formal introduction, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Helen Lederer is a comedian and actress, and it says here, Helen, much admired founder of the Comedy Women in Print Prize. Your memoir is out now. It's called Not That I'm Bitter, and she isn't bitter. I've read the book, and it's very funny, and actually also at points extremely sad and very revealing about what it was like to be a woman in comedy back in the day. I did see you very recently as Ken Barlow's love interest Elspeth in Coronation Street. Now, Helen, you are a very young woman. Kenneth Barlow should know better. He's at least 1,000 years of age and still courting.
He's actually 1,000. You're right. Your researcher did well there.
Yes,
and remarkable for those years.
He is,
being upright. No, that was... you get the call, don't you, as we both know, and all three of us, and I jumped. I mean, Coronation Street, are we going to talk about Coronation? We can talk about Coronation Street.
I mean, it's just more the fact
older
that...
woman.
In all seriousness, well, you're not the older person here. Ken Barlow's character is over 90. I do know that to be true. I'm sure he is, and he's still having girlfriends in Coronation Street.
Yes, is that a shocker? Or I think that the fact that Elspeth got a drink and gave it to him. Have you ever done that? You actually buy a drink and then you give it to the man. That was kind of... I've not done that myself.
Probably where I've gone wrong.
James never bought a drink anyway.
You know each other so well.
Can I just interject? Because did you want to say something about the eclipse? Because we've got... Celia has very helpfully actually detailed the facts about the eclipse. That the last eclipse was at 11:11 a.m. on the 11th of August 1999 in the UK.
Remember, that's really
and
odd.
Celia says it was a thrilling experience. The sky suddenly darkens, the temperature drops, and the birds and the animals go bonkers. Truly memorable. So it's all the tingles, isn't it?
No, it is a tingle, but we don't have another one for a very long time.
Yeah,
and I don't think it... I suspect it may not be in my lifetime.
Maybe in Ken's
possibly
lifetime.
Ken is different.
Because he's immortal.
An angel in some form. And kind to me. Didn't reject me.
No.
But I'm glad you said a nice thing about the... not that I'm bitter, because there is irony in the title. And you know when you say the title and then if people smirk a bit, you go, OK, that's fine then, you'll understand. Because obviously it wouldn't be funny if there wasn't some truth in it, but there really isn't much because of being this age and looking back.
Yeah, I think what you are is incredibly honest in this book, but also, I have to say, Helen, remarkably hard on yourself. You do give yourself a right old going over. And Fee and I have been talking in our podcast off air about male autobiographies recently, and indeed reading extracts from some male autobiographies. And I have to say, by and large, sweeping generalisation alert, they are not hard on themselves, and they're nowhere near as honest as you are.
Because we were brought up and immersed in our canvas. Our canvas has overlapped, hasn't it? And it is competitive. And I think there's part of me that is always waiting for someone to criticise me, and that's a starting point, or maybe or an end point. So I can't lie very well. I get quite anxious if I lie. So... if you're going to do it, you can't leave things out. So I had a kind of judgment person on my shoulder writing it. But I just wanted to make you laugh with the truth. So it was a challenge to go, I just need to have some irony in the narrative. So if I've done that, but I'm learning now, and this is my first interview. The people's reactions are really surprising, about almost judgmental of me. You weren't being judgmental of me, but entirely, I don't think. But there will be judgment, as you say, of women now, looking back at how women were then.
Yeah.
It's a prism, if I may use that very pretentious word. You might use that in your captions later, prism. And it's... I don't see how we can impose the same questions now of how we were then. It sounds a bit defensive, but do you know what I mean?
No, by the way, I'm not remotely judgmental, and Fee wouldn't be either, but I'm astonished by what you went through, to be blunt, including moments that were worse than Me Too. I mean, at least we won't go into the details of one really hideous incident with a man who was, quotes, coaching you in acting. which I was absolutely horrified
But you
by.
took it that way. What's interesting is another way to look at it is you look back, Kell disaster. We must have all had situations where, and you are so funny together. You know, you go, oh my God, that was, you know. And that was then, and people in positions of power, it was normal for people in positions of power to move the goalposts in a way they would never do now if you want to keep your job. And also, I wanted to be better. Actually, I want, and so there is a part we all play. So this is all, and really, ultimately, yes, that happened. I didn't make it up. We couldn't have done, but I wanted to be able to challenge myself to go. I just need to find the humour, the hysteria, that it's surreal as well in the narrative, because otherwise you go mad. And humour does make things safe.
You do talk about how back in the day, and we're talking the 1980s really, women were at least allowed to be funny. And there had been very successful funny women. Joyce Grenfell, for example, hugely popular. And
But she was before us, wasn't she?
well, even before me.
Lovely frocks. So nice.
Wonderful frocks. But you were one of very few women who were part of that 80s British comedy movement. What was it like?
Yeah, and I think looking back, the reason I wrote it, I don't know why I wrote it, so I've got to have a better answer than that. But because sometimes I think I wasn't there, because I wasn't a star, and that this book is fine for people to have just been there. So sometimes I think, was I there? Did I do those things? So there were 5 years worth of doing stand-up when not many other people were doing it. And also we're brought up not to boast. So I have to tread this line of not boasting, not exaggerating, but owning it. So the book was trying to do all those things, be because I hate showy-offy, but equally, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And being in the autumn of my life, it seemed the kind of time to go, hey, I charged £2.60 at the King's Head, in 1981 or something.
And what made you want to do it at all?
I don't know. I think you just have to remember possibly what's useful barometer is how were we all in our class at school. So there were 2 large people in my class. The other one wasn't funny. And so I was funny and large, had asthma. So those were helpful traits to get me into the hysteria and the joy of laughing and making other people laugh. So if you did a reunion, those people would still be those types, wouldn't they? So I think there's a sort of natural leaning for me to do that. And now I'm understanding that people are more tolerant about people who are different. Maybe I was different. But then I play on that because actually I'm not that different. So I'm not mad enough. People say comedians are quite mad. I'm quite sensible as well.
Are you? You've got a sensible side.
I have. It's a slightly quiet one.
Keep it hidden. You describe yourself at one point as a whole bit about an agent basically ripping you and lots of other people off. By the way, that should never happen, quite clearly, but it's surprisingly common.
It's in the public domain.
So it is. It's something we could talk about. But you call yourself at the bottom of the top in terms of the earners.
Yes, it's tragic, isn't it?
Well, but that's another example of you just being hard on yourself. Like you truly believe that although you were successful, you were never quite successful enough.
No, I wasn't in the A team, and there are probably many reasons why we can all look back and say, well, we didn't get that, or we nearly got that. But I think the climate was there are very few women's positions, and the women were championed brilliantly, and they became stars and remained stars. And the climate. And if you did something, then you were seen as duplicating that. So it was a bit pointless. So, oh, by the way, I'd quite like to do a sitcom about, MP, or we've got that in play for Dawn French, and that's fine and makes sense. But the times have changed now. But what did you ask me? It was something about the agent. Oh, yeah, bottoms. I thought that was quite funny because the very rich people didn't talk about it. So very rich, famous people don't have to do this. But I'm a sort of worker, so I'm quite happy to actually talk about it because there's still a bit of anger in me to talk about how it was.
Well, can I just say, some of your anger is completely justified, and I would be angry if I were you, because you were ahead of your time in quite a number of ways. Your book, for example, about being a single parent came out well before anyone else wrote about that kind of thing.
It was a misnomer, and I know it sounds a cliche, and don't we all say it, but they didn't know whether to put it in the health section or the humour section, because, and then when I did the interviews about, I was commissioned to do it. Somebody saw me doing a show and they said, Hodgson Southern, they said, oh, would you write a humorous book about single parenting? As if you could in those days. And so when I did,
and this is back in the
I think 90s,
yes, early 90s though.
It was. And so doing interviews with certain disc jockeys and things, perfectly well-meaning people, I don't say anything horrible about anyone. It's really important that I don't, but they were just baffled, like I'd done it on purpose. They said, well, hang on a minute, you're advocating being a single parent, but why get married in the first place? It's like, no, I'm just being amusing about the scenario like I would if I, dressed in green corduroys all the time. I'm just trying to find the humour in the world that other people hopefully might connect with some of it.
Yeah. You also wrote a seminal work on catering, aping something that Jane Asher had done. And I remember Jane Asher would stand looking pristine as only Jane Asher can.
Yes.
With a wonderful, inviting plate of canapé.
Called Easy Entertaining.
Easy Entertaining.
Beautiful hardback.
Yours was called?
Coping with Helen Lederer, but that was I would like to say, and you're so right, Jane. Thank you for I was either the right person at the wrong time, or the whichever way round. Ahead of my time or behind my time, just a time. But that was a parody. And there hadn't been many parodies, and I wrote that with two other really nice writers, Roger Planer and Richard O'Brien, and that was just fun. Oh, the joy! Like you two have. You've written a book. I was googling you. That book. Apparently, there's loads of merchandise to shift on the way. I want to get some of the many books because it's funny because you enjoy each other.
What's the name of our book again, Fee?
Did I say that out loud?
Did I say that out loud?
It was underrated, that, by the way.
I'm going to get one now, because you have fun. You have fun together.
I'm going to get one now. It's a bit late now, Helen.
It's free.
They are still available. Got
them under the desk.
Don't pay full price. We can help you out with that one.
But you've had fun working together, and that was a joy. We had a kind of concept, and there wasn't anxiety, and you're sharing it with other people. I enjoyed that process.
Yeah, but I think you see, we have benefited from the path that women like you have furrowed for us, because we're allowed to be self-deprecating without it harming our earning potential. And I think that is just a massive, massive change.
Yes. So just to explain that again. So are you saying how it is for women now, or talk me through that?
People like you, women like you, have made it easier for us to show.
I couldn't take a compliment. You said a nice thing.
No, I said a very nice thing.
And you did, and it didn't land.
Because we can show our weaknesses and earn money from that. And I'm not saying that we're milking it, but I'm saying that we're allowed to. Because I think the world has woken up to the fact that you can be a strong and independent woman, but you can also really feel the vulnerabilities of life. And it's okay to show the latter. It's not going to hurt the former.
As long as I take that, as long as again it's the authenticity of it that works. Because if you force it and you just replicate another, we're doing a vulnerable book now, then people will see through that as well. So that's the thing where you can't really. It's either funny or it isn't, even though we all have such prescribed tastes for what's funny. But no, I'm glad you said that's cheering. That's cheering.
Well, you should be cheering. And we've also had a lovely email from Kathleen, who says, in addition to being a great writer, actress and comedian, Helen is incredibly supportive and encouraging. She founded the Comedy Women in Print Prize in 2019. I was shortlisted. It led to me getting an agent and eventually published. She even came to my book launch party, despite it taking her hours to get there. And that shows what a cheerleader she is. That's from Kathleen, who also says, P.S. sorry about the storm. Yeah, well, right. Thank you,
a bit of wit there as well.
And a bit of wit. So just to let you know, Helen, you are much appreciated.
Thank you.
Don't think you're not.
No, I won't. But I am in the presence of women earning a living, being a bit vulnerable at times in a humorous manner. So I'm respectful back.
Helen Lederer. We'll have her on again, wasn't it?
We certainly will.
Yeah, and I want you back in Weatherfield as well, in the warm embrace of Ken. Not That I'm Bitter by Helen Lederer is out this week, Thursday, and is well worth a read because there's a lot of life truth in there, Helen. Thank you very much.